You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
And we are back getting ready here for the top 8 of this Season 5 Eternal Tournament Series, week number, what is this, 4 or 5? We're almost week 4. So we're getting ready for the top 8. The players are locked in. The matches are getting ready. But first, got to do a little plug here for our Patreon. We run this tournament series basically for free. It's all volunteer here. And, we like to keep this going and like to keep making it better and better. So we have a Patreon set up for this lovely Eternal Tournament series. If you enjoy it and want to show your support, there's a few ways to do so. You can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/aReNGee Eternal, or you can subscribe here to the aReNGee Eternal Twitch channel. You can also do things like bits and all that fun stuff. You can also just follow. It might not give us any direct monetary support, but we still appreciate any way you can show the support. As we move along in the Patreon goals, though, we can get some sweet stuff like our new for fun Sunday tournaments, like the one tomorrow that we have coming, where it's Omens of the Past only. These already have a $100 prize pool, and those things can continue to grow. Same with the prize payout for things like the invitationals, where they've traditionally had a $250 prize pool. And for the year-end championship, we're trying to get to an awesome prize pool of $1,000. So as the Patreon grows, so will the prizes and other goodies and more events. So with that nice, fun little plug out of the way, let's get to the top 8. I guess I should introduce somebody else that's in the booth here with me. Bear just had to duck out for some little emergency that popped up at home, but instead we've got somebody that's just as good, if not better. LocoPojo, hey, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, Rhino. How's it going?
I can't complain too much. At least my house isn't flooding like my old co-host here in the booth. So I understand you were having fun in the tournament earlier today, but now you're stopping by in the booth to have a different kind of fun.
Likes flooding, especially Eternal players. So hopefully we'll see a little bit less of that in the game, and hopefully Bear just can resolve his issues.
Yeah, so let's move on to the top 8. We'd already covered 5 players that had made it and locked in, but let's go over the entire thing again. We've got all of our 6-1 players. We have Kamado on the innovative and almost linear armory deck. We've got Angry Chicken repping Big Combre as always. Master Machu on Ikaria Blue. SMJ with the Dark Praxis list. We've seen a few players bring. Kasina Brev with Praxis midrange. Master Machu on Ikaria Blue got in at 5 and 2. Babamavs on Bartolo Plate. And Manilo Joe bringing up the rear with Rakano. So, mix of aggro, mid-range, control here. Not a whole lot of primal representation this week, but there's always next time, I'm sure. And should be a lot of fun matches ahead of us.
Yeah, it's looking pretty exciting. Seen a lot of fun decks. I actually played against this Praxis mid-range deck that we are about to run into with Kasina Brev, and we'll be jumping into that match momentarily.
Yep, the feature match to start off this top 8 will be Kasina Brev on Praxis midrange. We've already seen Kasina Brev on coverage, which actually covered them last round, right before the top 8. Just lots of aggressive units and burn spells and big stuff. And they'll be staring down Master Machu across the board, who is on Ikaria Blue, an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, it's the new school versus the old school, and we're seeing Kasina Brev with a decent start, not an amazing one. He's certainly got some power issues. Basically, no undepleted power means that he's just a turn behind, but he's going to be playing power every turn. And those 2 Dawnwalkers tend to be very strong against the more control-oriented styles. So he's got quite a bit to put down, and the Friendly Wish should help him out with card draw later on when he's having more issues.
Yeah, Dawnwalker, one of the best tools available to this kind of mid-range list to face off against the controlling list from Master Machu. Master Machu notably only has 3 Valkyrie Enforcers in the list to silence them, and a couple bring downs in the sideboard to silence them. But for the most part, these Dawnwalkers are going to be pretty reliable, recurring threats for Casey Nabrev.
Yeah, and it's pretty rare that you even want to sideboard just for a silence effect. That still leaves a 4-1 on the board. So yeah, they're going to be a tough sell. However, the first Valkyrie Enforcer does come out, silencing Dawnwalker number 1. That's going to give Casey a bit of a disadvantage on board, but he's got the second one ready to go. So as long as he doesn't see a silence, he should be pretty good to just deal a bunch of damage and pressure his opponent.
Yep. Also preemptively getting out this Ephemeral Wisp, hoping to find a trigger like that Rhino that just transformed in hand. And Master Machu now might be prompted to drop the Harsh Rule here. We'll see. Nope, going for the Rise instead, waiting for a real threat to come down before pulling the trigger on Harsh Rule.
Looking pretty okay for Machu. I think that at the moment the Dawnwalkers are pressuring enough that there's going to be a decent amount of health gain, but it's a matter of whether or not he can stabilize, and that is quite possible with his current board.
Yeah, so debating on which big flyer to get or maybe a nice weapon. There's all sorts of options, and opts to go with the Valkyrie Enforcer to get something to silence this other Dawnwalker.
Yeah, the Valkyrie Enforcer should allow him to take control of the board if he can keep these Dawnwalkers under control.
Yeah.
He's got a slight issue here with Kothan where he really wants that Owl, but he really kind of needs to be blocking these Dawnwalkers or avoid. He's just going to take too much damage as a result. It looks like his plan here might be to Harsh Rule, but if that's the case, then blocking with Kothan seemed like it might have been a good plan.
Yeah, Casey Nabrev takes Machu down to 12 power, draws 2 cards off the top, which is generally a good thing to do, but not when it's a Seed of Impulse and a Fire Sigil. One of the appealing factors with this Praxis mid-range list is even when you go up against control decks, you just have so much density of card draw via Heart of the Vault and these friendly wisps that you can just keep the threats and pressure coming, but that's not panning out this way for Casey Nabrev here.
Yep. Machu, convinced he can hold the board, rolls the Valkyrie Enforcers into the Dawnwalkers and then vanquishes the Rheinarch, giving him a pretty good board position. With the torch on Kothan, he's now got an even trade for Machu's Valkyries, which will basically preclude any sort of Harsh Rule, but also leaves Machu out of threats on board. Yeah,
Machu kind of forced to at least trade one, but opts to trade both just because Praxis does have burn spells in the list. There are Obliterates, Flame Blasts, and even the incidental 2 damage from Heart of the Vault lurking in this list. And Machu is worried about going down to 8 or even 4 health there and opts to trade off the board.
Yep, he's not willing to Harsh Rule on just 2 units that are fairly low value, even though they do represent a significant threat to him. This is a tough decision to make. He's got both Harsh Rules, but he doesn't want to oversell them because there's a lot of value in Casey Nabrev's deck, including the Heart of the Vaults and a couple of threats that can come out in multiples via card draw and other options. So he's got to be careful about using the Harsh Rules too soon. On the other hand, he's also just really hurting on board, so the first Harsh Rule comes out.
Yeah, I think you got to be responsible and use 1 Harsh Rule here just to try and keep your life total a little high. You've got the second one. You've got the sort of a card. Your opponent clearly is flooding in some regard. They haven't put any extra threats down, and I don't think they were content to just have 3 attack on board. But Casey Nabrev finds a Dawnwalker that prompts the sword to come out, and we'll see what this Temple Scribe digs up as a follow-up.
Nabrev's being very wily here, holding on to the Friendly Wisp. He can play any of his big threats immediately after playing Friendly Wisp, so that draw is guaranteed as long as he manages to set it up. But with the second Sword of Ikaria, he's actually in a little bit of trouble now. Certainly, Machu is not stabilized yet, but he is capable of just attacking into this board for a while, and unless Nabrev draws some sort of threat, then that forces some sort of response from Nabrev.
Yeah, Amber Acolyte, not exactly the threat you're looking for, but at least it stops the carnage of this sword. Of course, Casey Nabrev has plenty of life to work with, so the sword is not a huge threat. Master Machu finds some more card draw, it looks like, from Wisdom of the Elders, going to dig a bit deeper. And at the same time, it gets to hold up Caleb's Choice which is key here, right? We were talking about how Casey Nebrev's deck could have a lot of burn, and holding up Caleb's Choice the rest of the game, I think, is something that's in Master Machu's best interest.
Yeah, Machu has the board now on account of that Kothan. It definitely gives him an advantage there. He's still stuck at 6 health, and that disadvantage might eventually lose him the game, but the board is stable. He's got everything he needs to answer the current threats, and he has Harsh Rule in case things get out of control. So Nebrev gets the double draws, and with that, we have an Obliterate in hand. That's probably going to get cast right away.
Oh, yeah. Yep, he'll
get denied.
Yep, so Master Machu, wisely holding up Caleb's Choice this whole time, gets to take out that Obliterate, and will probably just untap and Harsh Rule away this board, clean up this mess. Although, you've got a decent board of your own built up. I don't think it's quite in your best interest to let them go wider than you here.
Yep, a Harsh Rule seems not unreasonable, especially since he can then rise to the challenge for some sort of silence effect. And indeed, he's pushing in, so that pretty clearly signals that there's going to be a Harsh Rule. Yeah,
the other option there would have been to rise for a hammer, hit the Titan, and then your Kothan's a 4/5 with endurance. So it would have actually still mostly locked up this board, especially because you would have had a torch in hand. But he's going with the bit more, conservative, safe route of just clean this up, harsh or rise for something probably big like an Ikaria, and try and close the game with.
I'm a little surprised at Nebrev's blocks here. He chose to take the 8 damage despite the strong signal for Harsh Rule. He had some decent chump blockers available, but clearly he just didn't expect it, or felt that there was an option where he could win if he let that attack through, and he went for it. So that puts them fairly even on health. Machu's still slightly more stable than Nebrev is, but Nebrev has more burn in his deck, so an Obliterate could still win this game.
Yep, Obliterate or Flame Blast, super live outs here, but Temple Scribe into Seek Power, not so much. It would have been cool if that Seek Power got maybe a sigil off the top and revealed some sort of warp unit, but that is not the case. Master Machu opted to go with the Dice Show, which was lethal until Casey Nebrev gained that 1 point of life. So this Dice Show is going to take Casey Nebrev down to 1. Machu now out of certain burn range, but Seek Power is not going to
problems today, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yep, it looks like Nebrev is going to take lethal this turn. Bit rough for him overall. Certainly had Machu close to lethal, but with the amount of card draw and control in the deck, stabilizing was essentially game over unless there was an Obliterate or some other answer for Nebrev.
Yeah, Nebrev drawing 15 sources of power that game, just not quite what they wanted to see. The triple Dawnwalker draw was certainly ideal, but yeah, no Heart of the Vaults, no Shatterglass Mages, only 1 Titan we saw, just not quite the threat density you want to see to close out that game. Of course, the clutch counter on the Obliterate was also big there. This is best of 5, so no sideboarding just yet. They're going to just get back in the game here.
Into round 2, Master Machu drawing a 1 power hand, so he's going to go ahead and toss that back. And as much as those Rise to the Challenges seem useful, looks like he's going to opt for something with the Throne Warden and Caleb's Choice inside.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Casey Nebrev's got Temple Scribes and Dawnwalkers and an Initiate, so got a hand to sculpt. Yep, looks like he's going to opt to go with the Temple Scribe and actually use the Monument there, not thinking that he's going to want the potential threat from Monument this game.
Yeah, it's looking like Sandstorm Titan and Dawnwalker both pushing quite a bit of damage for Nebrev. Those cards tend to be a very good answer to Kothan, just because Kothan really needs to have some sort of better answer. But yeah, it's a card that you can't really defend with against these cards because you want that later value to help you stabilize.
Yeah, you have the option of doing so, but it's generally not in the best interest. You want that flyer, but flying is one of the best ways to beat Praxis. But Vanquish comes out for the Sandstorm Titan, clears the way for this Kothan to get in, and now Casey Nebrev will probably respond by just drawing more cards, playing a Dawnwalker, and maybe wishing that he still had that Amber Monument.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit rough for him at this point. He's currently got a decent amount of aggression, but mostly Machu seems to have a decent defense as well. I think that at the moment, the Dawnwalkers are certainly helping Nebrev out quite a bit. And depending on how well this Obliterate resolves, he might get a decent amount of attack damage in.
Yeah, Master Machu will choose to negate that Obliterate, keeping the Kothon alive, especially with a hand that really just has a Throne Warden as your next follow-up and then a whole bunch of power. I think the plan of getting to ultimate Kothon this game makes a lot of sense.
Yep. There's a big issue with the Dawnwalkers here where they are very good at essentially attacking into all of Machu's current threats. Throne Warden, the Owls off of Kothon, and Kothon himself, all of them they trade evenly with. And since you're constantly getting those cards back, it's really quite scary, and you really need a way to silence those in order to avoid getting valued out by Nebrev's deck.
Yep, Machu not drawing the Harsh Rule, which is a nice card to have, but certainly not interested in using Harsh Rule on just a Dawnwalker and some 1/1s. So, and then top decks the Rise, but again, opting to just ulti Kothon, take to the skies, and try and win this race in the air. And then 2 Nebrev draws a Sandstorm Titan, which is nice with a friendly Wisp.
Yeah, Friendly Wisp plus Sandstorm Titan is Nebrev's draw engine. So he's currently up on cards on Master Machu. Of course, Harsh Rule tends to equalize that card disadvantage when the board's this wide. So there are some questions as to whether or not he's going to survive for a few more turns. We're going to see the Harsh Rule come down, and then once that happens, it's going to be anyone's game.
Yeah, we'll see what Machu draws for turn here. Clearly thinking hard about what to do. Opting to go for the Rise plan might just be rising for something like I don't know. If you get a hammer, you can't immediately kill the Titan, so that's a little awkward. But, I mean, Rise plus Sword at least uses up your power efficiently. I don't know if that's the best game plan here, but with 2 4/4s in play, you can kind of manage most of this board.
Yeah,
maybe get your opponent to extend more before pulling the trigger on Harsh Rule.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to pick up. Certainly silencing the Dawnwalker helps out with the Harsh Rule later on in the game. He will take a little bit of damage for whatever it is that he picks, but we're going to see if that helps him out. And what it ends up being is, in fact, I believe he's hovering over Ikaria the Liberator. There you go.
Yeah, Ikaria can have troubles swinging into Titan, but if the Titans are dead, it's a bit less of a problem. I think Nebrev's, this is already the second Titan that's been shown, so pretty reliable choice at going to Ikaria, and just probably opting to Harsh Rule the next turn, and then Ikaria the following turn, and see where that goes.
Yeah, I think Nebrev needs to find some Heart of the Vaults to really sort of stabilize for this game. Like the extra card draw plus the cost reduction plus the like sort of just tempo swing of often playing 2 units at once is really, really helpful against these control decks. He hasn't actually seen them in his first game, and he's probably going to be looking for them in his second.
Yeah, especially when you get to warp them off the top of your deck. That's the real appeal of the card, is you've already dig deep just to play it, and then you also get to draw another card on top of that, and that's what a lot of these control decks can struggle to keep up with. But that just hasn't been the case so far for Nebrev. Has not seen these Heart of the Vaults, although notably only playing 3, not playing the full play set of them. Also only 2 Shatterglass Mages, so only 5 warp cards total in this deck. It's more tilted towards being ready for other aggressive decks, which paid off getting him into the top 8, right? These Praxis Displacers and stuff, but they're certainly not at their best in this matchup.
Yeah, they can be a little bit tricky, and there's a lot of good answers to them. Nebrev has to take 4 again this time, as opposed to blocking with a Temple Scribe. So once again, he's actually a little bit low on health, and that's going to be an issue now that he's dealing with this Ikaria. That actually ends up being game.
Yep, more Amber Acolytes and Initiative Sands, all this power, and not quite enough to do with it. Not sure if Nebrev's just been having a case of the Floodies this game, or maybe just needs more topping in this deck, but I'm sure that they will address that as we go to sideboards here with Master Machu up 2-0 in this best of 5. Nebrev needs to pull the reverse 3-0 sweep to take this match.
Yeah, warp cards are extremely quality cards, but only if you draw them, and they don't increase their ability to be drawn any more than a normal card would be. So Nabrev is just sort of facing out Flood. He's not hitting those Heart of the Vaults at all, and he's choosing to take some damage that is making the turns a little bit shorter, giving him a few less outs. I feel like holding on to the wider board might be hurting him here. It's hard to say if it's the correct choice or not.
Yeah, from the Praxis end, it looks like you're going to get rid of maybe some of your power sources. That might be an over reaction here, but you're just trying to up your threat density. Obelisk is an interesting choice. I don't know if you want to go bigger. I think you just want to up the units. Shatterglass Mage is pretty cool in that it can take out weapons and be a unit and have warp. Like, all of that's very appealing. Groundbreaker can be tough to deal with. So it wouldn't be. I think the Praxis Displacers are coming out, and you've got to find something to bring in for them. And it seems like one of these top end threats is the way to go. Yeah, from the Ikaria Blue perspective, what do you think's coming in there? The Island's choice, Caleb's choice. We already saw that one Caleb's choice be clutch. Do you really want more of it?
Choice and 2 Caleb's favors in the current sideboard for Nabrev. So there's definitely a couple of those coming in. They're really good at dealing with the bigger threats and also for countering Obliterates and Flame Blasts. Like, the card's just very solid against this matchup. Yeah. As things go, like, Caleb's favor certainly can be helpful as well, and that attachment destruction is nothing to scoff at. So it looks like both of those will be coming in, and we'll see what else is in his deck as we run into the play.
Yeah. I think Island's choice is the clear winner for coming in. We'll just have to see what ultimately gets shaped for that. Really, that's the more intriguing question. But here we go into this match. Master Machu looking at a hand with, well, still got a Caleb's choice, and yeah, the bring downs did come in. I mentioned that is a fast silence. Casey Nabrev has 0 flyers in the list, so it's not here to kill anything. It's just here really to silence Dawnwalkers, I guess, and that's about it.
Dawnwalkers are a real threat. I'm not sure that I love bringing in a bring down just for them. It does mean that you're still, like, sort of hurting on board to the Dawnwalker. And while you get some value out of the ability to Harsh Rule and basically just get rid of the Dawnwalkers, as well as a bunch of other cards all at once, you will take some damage in the meantime if you're spending your bring downs on Dawnwalkers.
Yeah, so that does not sound like a great winner for a sideboard card to bring in, where it's like, well, it's sometimes okay. That's not really what I want to say out of a sideboard.
Nabrev finally has Heart of the Vault.
He
doesn't get to warp them off the top. He's actually got 2 of them in hand, though, and they're both really solid against the opening salvo from Master Machu. We do have Island's favor in Machu's favor, so as a result, we're seeing a little bit more defense against that more aggressive style. And we see here the Valkyrie Enforcer coming down, defending against the Dawnwalker. Every time he silences a Dawnwalker, Nabrev's overall card quality goes down quite a bit. It denies him a draw for every 6-drop he plays, essentially.
Yeah. Speaking of being denied draws, Casey Nabrev finding their warp cards this time around, but unfortunately not being able to warp them in. Then the good news here is Heart of the Vault's totally fine when you don't warp it in, although Shatterglass Mage, not so hot when your opponent even has an Aegis on their face and a 3 already in play. So wouldn't be shocked to see us just wait on this Shatterglass Mage until Heart of the Vault pings the Aegis off in the meantime.
Yeah, in a Dawnwalker deck, Shatterglass Mage is certainly a high-quality card, but we've already seen the Dawnwalker get silenced, and we know that Machu has a bring down for the second one, so Shatterglass is probably going to be pretty inconsequential for this matchup.
Yep, but here, Casey Nabrev hits the old A space, gets that 1 damage assigned to the Valkyrie Enforcer, which allows him to finish it off and draw a reduced cost Obliterate. Hey, that's a useful card to have. Of course, Master Machu has some Island's choices to respond to it if it ever shows up, but actually doesn't because it costs 3 instead of 5. Pretty sweet.
Yep, that's a big issue, actually.
Yeah.
So we see Island's choice killing Heart of the Vault. Casey Nabrev is basically playing as though he's not going to see a Harsh Rule, and thus far it's paying off for him. There isn't one in Machu's hand, and Machu isn't capable of casting it at the moment. So as a result, he keeps pushing the board, and that keeps being the correct play.
Yeah, and there's really no downside to like playing out Heart of the Vault, even if you're worried about Harsh Rule. Your opponent's stuck on 4, as demonstrated they're stuck on 4, so they have to draw an undepleted power to even cast Harsh Rule. And even if they do that, Heart of the Vault keeps replacing itself. These Heart of the Vaults just drew you an Obliterate and a Sandstorm Titan and popped an Aegis on your opponent's face. This is the kind of game we were talking about with that you typically see from Praxis, where it's just threat after threat after threat after threat. It's really just night and day from the first 2 games where we saw 0 Heart of the Vaults. This game we saw 2, and it's just an unending series of problems that Master Machu has to deal with.
Yep, Nabrev playing a little more cautiously this time around, picking up a power so that he can play both Reinarch and Obliterate next turn, but not playing both of his large threats into the available Harsh Rule, which, as it turns out, Machu draws and draws the power for.
Yep.
From here, he's got Diogo Malaga, which is a card that does not get islands and also has a really important ultimate effect. If he can keep that card alive for even 1 turn, that's going to be very relevant to the game.
Yeah, Diogo is certainly a nice pickup here. Opts to wait to play it, though, get more out of that charge effect, and instead get the 5/5 Overwhelm threat down and see how Master Machu responds to that first. In the meantime, Master Machu seeks for some power. Probably going to hold up Island's Choice here with Torch.
Yep, the Wicked Shreds coming out from Casey Nabrev does mean that he's probably going to be able to ultimate next turn, except that Machu does have a Starsteel Daisho, and that is something that can kill Diogo.
Yep, Starsteel Daisho can kill Diogo. We'll see what Master Machu's draw becomes here, as far as if he'll be able to torch it first or something like that and get to keep the Daisho. But I guess this Amber Acolyte's going to cancel that plan. And looks like Master Machu draws a Trailblaze and opts to cast that rather than getting Diogo off the board.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting play. Certainly you want Diogo's ultimate if you're Casey Nabrev, but at the same time, if Machu can find a way to clear the board for his Daisho, that's been the way that he's won previously.
The problem with that plan is, like, Diogo's not only making the rest of his deck double damage in charge, Diogo himself is going to get double damage. Like, that's a lot of damage coming.
Yeah, it's 6-8 to the face. I think, like, with Starsteel Daisho not attacking twice here on Diogo, he's taking probably too much. But
yeah,
Casey
has lethal. The Torch draw is lethal here. So,
oh, yep.
So no need to ultimate Diogo. Instead, just Obliterate plus Torch will finish this off. Yeah, that's the first step of the reverse sweep that we were talking about. Casey Nabrev taking Game 3, still down 2-1, but we're still got some games to go here.
Yeah, looks like Diogo did his job there, ended up actually pushing a decent amount of damage. He's underneath Island's Choice and Vanquish, so he's actually pretty hard to deal with for Master Machu, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So, yeah, we are going into Game 4. Might be some consideration as to whether or not there's going to be some deck changes. The Island's Choice and Vanquishes being such a poor card against Diogo, although I think that is a one-of in Casey's deck.
Yeah, Diogo's just a one-of. No extras in the sideboard or anything. Maybe you should have more of them, but I think Casey Nabrev was more prepared for the aggro matchups, especially with, Volcano Plate taking down last week's ETS. So, we're seeing some Praxis displacers and stuff like that. And Diogo's a nice thing to have, but not always a necessity.
We're waiting on the game to start here. It looks like we have an opening, and now we are seeing a Seat of Justice for Master Machu. Another 1-power hand. Got to throw that back.
In the meantime, we've got the opposite amount of power in Casey Nabrev's hand. Literally all power. Some of it in the form of Initiate of the Sands and Amber Acolyte, but he'll be able to cast every spell he sees this game, at least. Casey Nabrev certainly doesn't have to worry about that. He has got to be worried, though, about actually killing Master Machu with this starting hand.
Yeah, Machu has Seat Banner, which means that he's going to be a turn behind on draws, and with Initiate accelerating into a couple of smaller draw cards, that does mean that he's going to be a little bit behind on board. But Nabrev has not found a cheap, efficient attacker like Diogo or Sandstorm Titan yet. So this is only a mild threat for Machu.
Yeah, but in the meantime, this little bit of damage adds up, especially when Casey Nebrev's packing things like Obliterate, Flame Blast, and Torch in the list. All these little hits of 2 damage certainly aren't nothing. Master Machu not finding the power he needs just yet, but yeah, like Caleb's Choice, not exactly what you want. That Bring Down, certainly not either. So hopefully this Trailblaze finds some good things, and Casey Nebrev finds a Groundbreaker here.
Yeah, Groundbreaker is a pretty solid choice. The life gain issue is not like a particularly strong one. Like, I don't think Machu's really going to care about like not being able to gain life. There's very little in his deck that actually does gain life, but he's not really capable of holding Groundbreaker either. The most he can do is silence it, and that's not a very efficient use of your resources.
This dodges Island's Choice and Vanquish, which, hey, speaking of Island's Choice, Master Machu just drew here. So, yeah, I mean, Master Machu can bring down on it just so it does 3 damage instead of 6. And yeah, that looks like what Master Machu will opt to do here. This bring down not being the most exciting inclusion out of the sideboards.
I'm very curious if Nebrev has actually taken his Dawnwalkers out of his deck in order to favor these 3 attack damage units. It's quite possible that he's trying to just sweep under Island's Choice and Vanquish and get a little bit more value out of like the Groundbreakers and the Diogos and that kind of situation, because these are very strong cards against the Auric Runehammers and everything in Machu's hand.
I'm pretty sure the Dawnwalker stayed in. I think these Groundbreakers just came in for Praxis Displacer and like Xenon Initiation, just these cards that you don't expect to really have any use out of. But either way, the threats are coming this time for Casey Nebrev again. Kept a power-heavy hand, but the Praxis deck living up to its promise here of just threat after threat after threat. And if I'm Casey Nebrev, I'm dropping one of them here, but instead opting to actually Obliterate while Master Machu's tapped out, so you don't have to worry about it getting countered by an Island's Choice or a Caleb's Choice. And yeah, that ends up being the right play and gets the scoop out of Master Machu.
Very good play. It means that there's just no possibility of a harsh rule actually solving the board state. And yeah, it's just not going to set things up. Like once you're at 1, there's not much that Machu can do about it. He doesn't have any life gain in his deck. So Nebrev is almost guaranteed to get that extra 1 point of damage somewhere. And like here, it just ends up being lethal. So good pressure, good way to just dodge around all of those counter spells, and good play from Nebrev.
Yeah, we're all tied up here in post board. We'll see if the players do a little bit more adjustments. Maybe after some experience with Bring Down, Master Machu will reconsider its inclusion here. Looks like they're looking at the sideboard right now and hovering right over it with the minus sign. So, yeah, there they go. I don't think that's the only reason Machu lost those games, but it certainly wasn't a helpful inclusion. And it looked like Kothons were the things that got cut because Master Machu is bringing those back in.
Yep, 2 Kothons in, 2 Bring Downs out, and it looks like Machu is ready to go. Definitely, I think the Kothons are going to be more helpful here. They're not amazing against a lot of the things that Nebrev is packing. Like the 4/4 is almost meaningless as a body against most of the things that he's trying to aggress with. It certainly doesn't work well against Dawnwalkers. It's not good against Sandstorm Titans. It mostly just dual blocks and sort of sets up some better defenses that way, which can be a good way to get rid of Diogo for free. Certainly, it does help him stabilize, however, and chump block, and I think all of that is actually things that he's actually looking for.
Ultimately, the biggest key here is that Master Machu wants to hit power every turn and actually curve out and not get stuck on 4 like they did the past 2 games. And it looks like that will not be the case here. Already 4 power in the starting hand for Master Machu with a Wisdom of the Elders, Vanquish, and Torch. That's a beauty of a hand for him.
Got the Torch for early aggression, the Vanquish for the mid-range aggression. He's got card draw, and he has the Throne Warden to actually gain some health back. So he's quite capable of stabilizing with what he's currently playing, and it doesn't look like Casey has his usual initiate into extreme board state type situation going on. So Machu doesn't have to deal with a lot, and he's capable of playing quite a bit down himself.
Yeah, Casey Nebrev with a tough choice there, opts to open on the Dawnwalker rather than go with the Amber Acolyte. Certainly has no shortage of threats on 4 and is just banking on naturally drawing the Sigil, and does. Notably gets the Fire Sigil, so can even drop the Groundbreaker instead of the Sandstorm Titan if he so chooses. And I think will opt to do so. Again, it dodges Island's Choice and Vanquish, and that's a big deal here.
Machu might be in trouble. He has a very good hand, but Nabrev's hand is better. There's 2 Sandstorm Titans right in there. He's got Amber Acolyte. He's got such a density of threats that he's very unlikely to be bothered by getting power for the next couple of turns. In fact, it's going to help him quite actively. And with Amber Acolyte fixing for him, if he doesn't draw power, he's at least going to be able to play a threat every turn for the next 4 or 5 turns. I think he's pretty likely to take this game just off the density of his threats alone.
But Master Machu crucially finding a Permafrost here, which does answer this Groundbreaker. So now just under the pressure of the Dawnwalker. Notably means can't use the Permafrost on Dawnwalker, though, so you'll have to find a better solution to that card in the meantime. But still cutting down the clock here.
Yeah, Permafrost is always a rough solution to Dawnwalker because this deck just really wants to Harsh Rule and Lightning Storm and do all sorts of just defensive stuff, and that'll eventually clear it out and get the Dawnwalker back. At the moment, Machu is probably looking for a Harsh Rule, but that's not going to help him. He's in a lot of trouble here.
Yep, Vanquish comes out to deal with this Titan, and again, Casey Nabrev just doing what Praxis does, which is present threat after threat after threat, force the opponent to stabilize. But Machu's doing a good job here of dealing with all of it. The Vanquish comes out, deals with the Sandstorm Titan, has the silence for the Dawnwalker. But in the meantime, Casey Nabrev finds more power and keeps on chugging along here.
I think Nabrev actually, it's going to be a pretty close game. Machu's Throne Wardens certainly are extremely helpful here. And although Predatory Carnosaur helps develop the board in quite a fascinating way, these 2 Throne Wardens are going to help Machu stabilize.
They're certainly going to help stabilize, but if the plan here is to double block using the Throne Wardens from Master Machu, that means the Heart of the Vault will be able to clean up the mess. But no, it looks like Machu's not going for that double block, getting some counter aggression with the 3/3 fly.
Yeah, I think this is clever play. He's pushing damage on Nabrev because just those flyers are not really answerable except by Sandstorm Titan. And if Nabrev wants to play Sandstorm Titan here, that's certainly viable, especially with the Amber Acolyte adding onto the pile. Machu now has double blocks available with Throne Warden, so he can hold the fort a little bit better than you'd expect him to.
Yeah, crucially, if the Throne Wardens double block this 6/6, you can't even use Heart of the Vault to finish one off because they both have an Aegis. So some interesting interactions coming up there. But Machu also draws a Harsh Rule here, and that's going to get him to A space and probably reset this board.
Yeah, we'll see if Nabrev decides to take any damage here. So far, every time that Machu has offered a clear Harsh Rule, it's been a little bit of damage taken, as well as the Harsh Rule. So the value out of that has been really, really exceptional. And I think that here, Nabrev has Heart of the Vault as his final answer.
See what it comes up with.
But he has some potential to flood.
All right, they're hitting a Rhino is nice. Can't cast it here alongside Heart of the Vault. But both players basically in top deck mode here. We'll see who it favors. But right now, Casey Nabrev slightly ahead, and that draw from Groundbreaker means he might get way more than just...
Yeah, the Spark is pretty easy to activate here, attacking with a 6/6. There's just not a choice for Machu to defend. And the second Groundbreaker combined with the Rhino is just a demanding play. He absolutely needs Harsh Rule here. An Island's Choice might help him out, but in general, he's just going to have a rough time playing against this.
Yeah, I like this play by Casey Nabrev. Some people might meter out their threats, but I think you just dump both here and force your opponent to find the Harsh Rule. Master Machu finds a Wisdom, digs, but just plays down another Throne Warden.
That's still a pretty good defense. It allows him to gain a little bit of health back and also provide double blockers against some of the scarier threats that Nabrev's got going. From here, you might block Groundbreaker just on account of the fact that it is the only unit you cannot Island's Choice. But the other option is, of course, the Rhino with its Overwhelm damage, which is fairly threatening as well.
Instead, opting to double chump and is going to bank on this Trailblaze and the draw step, finding a rule. I think that's a reasonable approach. If you don't do that double block, you get into obliterate range, and you don't answer that either. So if you're already assuming that you can't win unless you draw Harsh Rule, making the blocks that go with that plan makes some sense here.
Yeah, seeking power just to thin out the deck and get a higher chance of a better card off Trailblaze. Trailblaze picking up. Looks like
Torch is not going to get it done, and Casey Nabrev pulls off the reverse sweep here.
yeah.
Down 0-2, then rips off the 3-0 post board.
Yep, Machu pulled a Starsteel Daisho off his first Trailblaze, which unfortunately just wasn't a very helpful card against what was going on with Nabrev's deck. So, yeah, just a lot of damage, a lot of problems, and unfortunately, Nabrev, well, fortunately for Nabrev, certainly, takes the game.
Yep. So those last few games kind of highlight the power of Praxis mid range, right? Typically, a control deck has no. It's built to handle other mid range decks. They're eventually going to run out of gas, right? But not so with Praxis. With Heart of the Vault and these other warp cards, they really just don't run out unless you get those extreme situations like we saw in games 1 and 2.
Yeah, Heart of the Vault is a clunky card. It's hard to play, but it's so worth it if you can play it even once. Like just drawing the extra card, getting the cost reduction, that's the same kind of value that you get out of a Mystic Ascendant just by playing it straight off the board. If you warp one in, you got 2 cards straight away. That's really exceptional value. And like just playing them over and over again can certainly refresh your threats when you're playing the kind of mid-range aggressive lists that Nabrev is running. So yeah, definitely a lot of threats to deal with, and Machu just didn't have all of the correct answers, so just eventually got overwhelmed.
Yep, but still, hats off to Master Machu for repping Primal and Control in the top 8. Just didn't quite work out, but still an excellent tournament run for them. In the meantime, Casey Nabrev moves on to the top 4, which we'll be getting to just shortly. That was the last match to resolve, so we've got upcoming in the semifinals, Casey Nabrev versus Manilow Joe, who is on, I believe, Rakano. And on the other side of the bracket, SMJ, who is on Dark Praxis, going up against Kamado with that really interesting armory list. Still alive over there.
Yeah. Well, we will see you in the next round, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching. And we'll see you very shortly for the next round in the bracket.